Okay, welcome back, everyone. This is Chase Anderson, and again, joining you virtually today with Christian Schrader, who is good enough to join me on a call today to talk a little bit about kind of his background, jumping into the industry, and then his current situation, which I really appreciate you being willing to share some insights around, just how COVID-19 has impacted your work, your life, and kind of where you're going from here. And we'll dive into that a little bit more, but thanks for being willing to join.
It's a wild time for sure, but it's one of those things. It's like, you got to kind of take it with stride. So.
Yeah. Well, would you mind just sharing a little bit about your background? I know most recently you spent a good chunk of your career at Stance doing a variety of things.
Yeah. So I went to school for just a kind of general graphic design degree. Got out of there and had kind of fallen in love with the mountains in the meantime. So I started chasing down industries that I was really a little closer from, just from snowboarding and skateboarding. And that got me at Maddox for a real short bit. I don't know if you guys remember that apparel company. They're around, but they're kind of doing some small stuff now, trying to figure out their place in the industry again. And then ended up at Stance, like probably about a year after that. And then fast forward and it's been almost 10 years. So it's crazy. It goes quick.
So while you were at Stance, what were those different roles? Like, how did you get in? What was that?
I literally stumbled across if you guys are familiar with Malachi, the like online, action sports industry job board.
Yeah, totally.
Literally stumbled across an ad on there from the creative director at the time, looking for a kind of part-time design intern. And it was super vague, like just graphic design intern. And that was kind of it. And I was like, okay, well, I don't have a job. I need a job. And I don't really want to go back and wait tables again or bartend or whatever, to like kind of fill the interim. And so reached out, and I actually was sitting in our backyard at our house that we were staying in from college. And we were about to go to Mammoth to go snowboard. And my phone rang, and I was like, I don't recognize this number. Like, I'm not answering it, And my buddy goes, no, you should answer it. Like, you've been applying to a lot of things, it could be a job. Sure enough, I answer it, and it's my boss at the time, Aaron Hennings. He's like, hey, I'm calling you back about your application. Like, can you come in tomorrow? It's like, sure. Okay.
Wow.
Like,
yeah,
I'll be there, I guess. So I went down, did an interview, and, kind of long story short, started off with like a couple days a week. And then at the time, that place there was, I think, 6 of us. And it was, every week was just going faster and faster and faster,
Right.
And so it was like 2 days a week to come in 4 days. Okay, we need you here every day. And it quickly kind of spiraled into a full-time gig.
Right. So it's interesting because Stance wasn't Stance yet. Right?
Sure. Yeah. No, we had, like I said, there was like 6 of us, maybe, after the first couple months, maybe 8 or 10 of us total, as they brought people on to just fill different roles. And yeah, no one knew about it. And it was, you might've been able to find it in a couple retailers, like in San Clemente or in, Huntington Beach area, some of the surf shops. They were really good about kind of aligning with those retailers right off the bat to make sure it was going to work.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was tiny. And I remember like a lot of people, you work for a sock company? Like, what is that? That's not a thing,
Right. Socks really wasn't the category or the industry that it is now, right? Like,
no, yeah.
For socks at the time.
You had Happy Socks over in Europe, but, and obviously Smartwool and those guys were all around, and Darn Tough and all the outdoor brands. But even then, it was still very basic, maybe 3 colorways and that was it. A couple different heights and different cushions and very specific kind of use cases versus the approach for Stance. It was like, well, let's bring something into like the everyday wear, and how can we like really bring that to life? So. Right.
So, you just kind of threw your hat into the ring. Like, how do you, this is for people right now who are looking for opportunities and in this environment, it's going to be a challenge, but how do you leave yourself open to opportunities and be willing to just throw your hat into the ring into a situation that you don't know is going to fully develop into like Stance? You just didn't know it was going to be what it,
granted, I was super young at the time, or not super young, but I was, 20 something years old, and I didn't have a wife or, I was, living pretty lean and not a lot of overhead.
Yeah.
So I think that obviously plays a little bit of a part in that role. Just kind of you're relatively carefree anyway. So it's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, why not?
Yeah. So
But
you were able to take risks at that time.
yeah, and it wasn't like, now it would maybe seem like a really big risk
Mm-hmm.
if it was like my current state and it's like, oh man, like I have, a wife and we want to have a kid. And so it's like, it's a little bit more higher stakes game.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, it was more of just kind of doing my homework on who these people were. And so like when I had my first interview, he, my then boss, who would become my boss, Aaron, kind of started dropping some names of people who were involved. And I didn't really know who they were. But luckily, with modern day internet, you can get on and pretty much find out anyone's name and what they're, at least part of, especially if they've been in like that industry for a while. And so I started quickly realizing it's like, oh, well, these guys were, chief marketing officer over at Element and a VP at Skull Candy and a, president of Reef. And it quickly became like apparent that like, okay, this isn't just like a little, we're going to throw a pipe dream out there and see if it hits. Like these are relatively smart guys and they kind of know what they're doing and they're all coming together. So it was attractive to be a part of that for sure.
Right. I love that approach. Like I tell students or other people who are looking for jobs, like in a lot of cases, when you're interviewing a company or you're being interviewed by a company, you should be interviewing them and you should
Sure.
be researching like, who are the people that I'm going to be working with? And
100%.
in some ways that can be almost as important or more so than what you're actually doing, if that makes sense. I don't know if you feel the same way, but just surrounding yourself by people who like are going to be able to mentor you and take you to the next level.
Yeah.
Like you could have the coolest opportunity, but be surrounded by really not great people who aren't going to invest in you or don't have a great track record. Is that your experience?
It makes sense to like looking back at it now from a business mind. Like you want someone that's invested themselves at least enough to do the homework and come to the table with like, they know what's going on. They know the general gist of, what your business is. They understand, what you're trying to do and they're on board with that. And they're coming with, creative solutions on how to attack different problems or, hey, have you guys tried this? I think that's a great way to look at it. And yeah, you'll quickly realize, when you do that kind of homework that this is either feels like a good thing or it doesn't. And a lot of times it's just, you got to go with your gut and kind of really what you're feeling in those situations. Cause you can't be, luckily Stance wasn't what it was. And so it's like, it's easy to not be blinded by the, aura of it, of what it became because it wasn't there yet. But, as a kid out of college, it's like, you're kind of like, I'm throwing my hat at everything,
Right.
and kind of seeing what sticks. But it is worth doing your due diligence and really kind of figuring out who's steering the ship, so to speak.
Right.
And make sure that's something you want to be on board with for a while.
Yeah. Especially so during times like this, with the crisis that's going on right now and how that's impacting brands. I mean, just finding work right now is going to be a challenge for people. I think your approach is really interesting and relevant where it wasn't a full-time gig, right? I mean, it was, how many hours do you think you were working to start?
I think I was there for when I first started, it was 2 days a week.
Wow.
And I would, get in the morning and leave by 5. So,
Right.
Maybe doing 20 hours a week max.
Right. I think that's just a great lesson, that sometimes you just got to take what's in front of you and be willing to see that as, an opportunity to invest in yourself
Sure.
and put in some time and invest and hope that something's going to pay off. Right. Even if it's a small opportunity. I think you just take what's in front of you. And I know a lot of people, students, people who are looking to break into an industry, sometimes you got to be willing to even work for free, right? And just put in time and hang around long enough. There's, I've told this story to students and other people, but there's a Ultra Footwear was here locally, and there was a footwear designer there. When he wanted to break in, he asked if he could job shadow once a week.
Yeah.
and he job shadowed, and he hung around long enough that they were just like, you're here, so why not give you
We
some
should
work,
probably
right?
start paying you.
Yeah. And then eventually he started working there for a little bit, a couple days a week, kind of
Mhm.
similar situation, then went to full time. And now he's a full blown footwear designer in the industry. So I think
Yeah, and
that's
I
just a
mean,
great lesson there.
if you and think about that from like a executive or management point of view, like if you have someone that's that dedicated and they're there, they want to learn, and they're investing in themselves, and they're also already getting close to the products, because that's the other thing too. It's like when you're hiring someone, like you might be the best designer in the world at this, but you don't know the other end of something.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so it's like, okay, well, this, he's younger and he's less experienced, but he's been in our building, understanding our processes, understanding our workflow, and like really integrating with that whole dynamic versus someone that's like completely out of left field that's got to go through that whole process still.
Right.
That takes time.
Yeah, that integration with the team is the intangible, right? It's like you
Yeah.
can't put a
And that's
dollar
when the magic
value on
really
that.
starts happening.
Yeah. Um, bringing that to now in the current situation where companies are furloughing people,
Hmm.
letting people go, and in some cases, companies are pivoting towards building
Yeah.
PPE
Totally.
stuff and manufacturing medical equipment now here in the States. I've told some students, you know what? In some cases, companies are hiring more in different areas, right? They need people to come and assemble or manufacture.
Sure.
Um, and at this stage of your career, maybe that's a great opportunity. If you want to get in product, maybe see how product is manufactured, and
Hmm.
be willing to go in at that level and just get that experience and take what's there. And you don't know where that can lead you down the road, but
Totally.
so trying to take some of those lessons. It was a different situation when you got that first opportunity to now,
Yeah.
but trying to take some lessons for people who are looking for opportunities right now. They're out there, but they're maybe not the opportunities that you thought they would be.
Yeah. They just look a little different than maybe what you were expecting.
Right.
And
Right.
I think that's something too, like as a designer, I mean, you should, to know the aspects that go into manufacturing, that's huge. I mean, that's
Yeah.
going to open your way of thought process and how you actually design and go about attacking a solution completely different. If you know, like, oh, well, no, I can go this direction with it. And because I understand the back end manufacturing and like kind of the nuts and bolts of it, and you can really, that's when I think too, like from a design point of view, some kind of cool stuff starts happening and you start breaking out of the kind of conventional mold.
Yeah. So
And that,
when kind of pivoting a little bit, when you started at Stance, were you an employee, or was it kind of a contract
yeah, so it was a
relation?
contract position at first, which I had no idea what that even meant at the time.
Okay, so
um,
those are some questions that I've gotten from students. They want to do freelance
yeah.
work, they want to do contract work. Like, how, what do you wish you would have known going into that situation?
Um, just kind of understanding that like, you're going to have to pay some taxes on this money.
Mhm. Yeah,
Like they're like, eventually someone's going to start asking for the portion of the money that they didn't get.
yeah,
And just be prepared for that. And it's like, as a kid, luckily it wasn't a crazy amount of time that I was at that, contract level, because I had no idea. I was completely clueless. But you live and learn, and it makes you definitely a little more aware now, like later on in life, of like, oh, okay, if I do take on those jobs, like I need to account for that lost, income that I will potentially be paying into those kind of things.
right.
Um, so, do your homework and figure out what that looks like. Obviously it's different in every state, and, it's kind of I don't think it's like a blanket case scenario, but,
Right.
do your homework and like make sure you're setting yourself up for success, and you kind of have all the variables at least relatively figured out. Um, and yeah, and just be open to be flexible for sure.
Yeah, and I know in your situation, you were probably not in a position to negotiate or say, "Well, this is my rate. Like, this is
Yeah,
what
totally.
I work for." How do you? You're in a different position now. Like, how do you value your time? I know a lot of people have asked me that. How do you put a value on your work and
Yeah,
what you can
it's
do?
tough. I personally, I'm not a big fan of doing like hourly freelance or contract work.
Yeah.
I like to just say, hey, this is the project, and I think like it's worth X amount of my time. And and that might vary from someone that's got a brand and there's 3 people there and they're really bootstrapping it,
Right.
But then when you're talking to the VFs of the world or the bigger guys, like they have the money to invest in those things and they will. And so it's like, know that, you're not going to get the same amount of money out of each scenario.
Right. Yeah.
For relatively the same work, maybe. And that kind of seems, it might sound kind of weird just because it's like, well, if I'm doing one job, why wouldn't it pay the same as if I'm doing the same job somewhere else,
Right. Yeah.
Just the way the businesses are ran, especially with like smaller scale startups, it's just, they don't have that kind of cash flow to finance those kind of things.
Right. Yeah.
So,
going back to the contracting
mhm.
question, in your situation with Stance, I'm sure they were drawing up the contract, and did you have to set up your own business? What was some of that like, the nitty gritty?
Yeah, I didn't really set up any like sort of LLC or anything at that time.
Yeah.
It's definitely, like, looking back now, I definitely would, I wish I knew more about that kind of part of the world. Because that's definitely, it's helpful and it protects you for, just on your own liabilities.
Yeah.
And then too, it looks good because it looks like you've taken some initiative and you have that kind of business mind,
Mm-hmm.
which is a really cool aspect for brands to acquire someone that has not only this awesome art and design point of view, but like, hey, you understand like that this is a company and it needs to A, make money, and B, do things that a business needs to do. And so I think looking into that and at least understanding it to a degree is super beneficial, not just for yourself, but for just career development and kind of understanding like the next steps into that business or brand world, coming out of, whether it was just doing freelance stuff on small scale or, you're strictly were a student for a while and then now you're kind of entering the workforce.
Yeah. It's
That's a super, super important thing.
Yeah, I know that I've had that question. It's like, I've had students who are saying, well, I don't know if I want to jump in completely and start a business necessarily, but I want to do projects here and there, like, or maybe I want to just test the waters. And I think students are trying to figure out what's that line of like, well, okay, can I take a project and just like see how that goes and see if I like that world before I go through that whole process of setting up a business? And I'm sure, I know just a lot of students are trying to figure out, okay, what's the line?
And honestly, this whole scenario right now, I think is going to change the way brands interact with certain pieces of the business. And so, for example, like a design thing, like a design gig, I mean, you don't really need to be there.
Right.
It's 100% doable from really anywhere, as long as
Mm-hmm.
you're have your own kind of, um, ability to kind of buckle down and get the work done, and you can self-start and obviously, all those. But I think this is going to change the dynamic. I think a lot of companies are going to realize like, oh, well, it worked relatively well when we were all working from home for those X amount of weeks.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And in some cases, we've got some major brands that we work with that, I mean, they're still hiring people, but it's remote positions for certain types of product design roles.
Mm-hmm.
In particular, 3D apparel design positions
Mm-hmm.
are huge for this company right now, and they just don't have the people in house who can do it, and so they're looking to hire, students, or recent graduates from our program on a contract basis. So
Yeah. I mean, definitely don't be. I would say just like word to the wise, don't be afraid of those contract jobs. Don't
mhm,
be, it's a foot in. And I mean, a foot in
right.
anywhere is better than standing outside the door wishing you were on the inside,
Yeah, totally. No, that
So
makes sense.
you can't, don't balk at it just because it's like, oh, you had in your head that it was going to be this, grand plan and it's not panning out that way.
Right.
You got to be flexible. And especially right now, like
Yeah.
everyone's kind of trying to figure out how to navigate this.
Yeah, totally. Um, maybe going back a little bit to your day-to-day at Stance,
Mm-hmm.
I want to dig into a little bit more, like your roles that you had there,
Sure.
kind of what you were able to do over the years you were with Stance, and you were there for 8 years. Is that right?
Yeah, a little over
More.
8, almost. It was, let's see, I think about 9.5.
Right. And
Um,
over that time, you probably had a variety of positions or
yeah.
roles or titles. what were you working on over, the different
Mhm.
periods of time that you were there? It sounds like it started with graphic design, but it morphed into a lot of different things.
Yeah, I mean, I got super lucky. Obviously, being at a small brand, you're here. I mean, you're doing everything. I can remember I was laying catalogs out. I was
Mm,
doing web banners, for online, and then I was downstairs in the middle of the night painting trade show booth walls with the paint roller.
right.
Um, like having that, being able to kind of like be scrappy is definitely a benefit and a kind of a mandatory for any small business. But yeah, then that kind of started morphing into product, and doing print, pattern, color, and then the technical side too, designing out and tech packing and everything. Yeah, and then that quickly, since it was a product company and that's what our ultimate goal was to, produce a good, it quickly transitioned into like, okay, like my time is better spent here, and we can either bring someone else in to do more digital side of things, or we can, we'll divvy up the work kind of as it comes in. Yeah, and then it was me and a couple other guys doing product. Aaron Hennings, the gentleman I mentioned that hired me, and then I want to say we had like one or two others that were, I believe, on a contract basis as well, helping with kind of like seasonal product design stuff. But yeah, it was, I mean, 2 to 4 of us at max probably. So it was wild, but it's cool. I mean, and then from there, it kind of spiraled into, just working on casual stuff. And then some of our first performance stuff was the snow and the run and the train categories. So working on those. And then when I don't know if you guys will remember this would have been years ago now, but we got the on-court deal for the NBA.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so that was a very like pivotal, like I will remember the day that happened for as long as I live, because that definitely pushed us to like the next level really fast.
For sure. Yeah.
And I remember I've got photos. I'll have to send you one of them, but I have we had this huge table in one of our offices, and it was probably like, I think we had 2 of them together. It was probably 20 feet long. And I had every single team style, home and away, laid out in tech pack form on the table to go through and review it. And it's just like, anytime I come across that photo, it's like, oh wow, that was a wild time for sure. And at the time I don't think anyone had any branded material on court except for the shoes.
Wow.
Like
Yeah. I mean,
if
this
you
was
look at uniforms, they were
pre-uniform
all,
logos. Yeah. It
yeah,
really was.
it was team logos,
Yeah.
and they had uniforms obviously, but
Right.
no Nike swoosh, no Adidas,
Right. Right. And now we've gotten
Um,
into the corporate branding on
yeah, and
uniforms as
so, and I
well.
remember
Yeah.
that being like, just, we were all mind blown that they're like, yeah, they're gonna let us keep the logo on the socks, like. And I remember like we went and fully moved the logo around to make sure it was visible, like for certain scenarios, because normally it was like, oh, we just, the logo's on the inside of the ankle and that's just where it is. And
Right.
it's like, well,
Yeah.
for this, like no one's going to see that in, on Sports Illustrated shoots or whatever. And so we started moving stuff around, and it just spiraled out from there. But that was a pretty pivotal moment for that entire brand, and definitely for myself to be able to work on that was, at the time, I don't think I even realized like how awesome that was,
Well,
But looking
yeah.
back,
Now looking back, and we don't have the NBA right now. It's like, wow, that's kind of
yeah,
surreal to think about.
yeah, it was cool. It was a cool time, and I'm not even like, I enjoyed watching basketball, but I'm
Mhm.
definitely not a fanatic about it.
Yeah.
But still, to have a part in that, and just the opportunities too that one scenario opened up for us after that was,
Yeah.
I mean, that was game changing for that company for sure.
Right. Was there a project that you ever worked on? You mentioned, I mean, basketball not being your thing
Sure.
necessarily, but was there an opportunity where you were able to bring like your work and like something from outside of work that was your passion together, and you kind of had a moment, it was like, wow, I'm able to bring these worlds together, or an
Yeah.
activity or something? What was that like for you?
Yeah, when we were really pushing on the adventure program and our snow program, those were my 2 kind of quote unquote babies that I held very close and kind of dear to me. And they've been like, the snow program was in place, and it was there, but we definitely tinkered with it and, brought new ideas into, construction and cushion and, what if we did this or, different scenarios. And then the adventure as well. I worked with a handful of other people at Stance, but myself and a guy by the name of Hava Fernandez, who you guys are, if anyone's familiar from like Solomon or Nike, he was at those brands for a while. Awesome guy. And he really helped kind of pioneer that category with me. And he kind of led it on the product marketing side. Mm-hmm. And then I led it on the like product design, and technical design side. But yeah, that was cool. And that, that opened up a world to me that was like, oh, okay, this is where like I want to be, not only am I doing, design, which I love and it's fun and I enjoy that, like the mental aspect of it, but now I'm doing it for a world that's very close to me and that I can very much more relate to. And the people in that, it kind of snowballed out from there, so to speak.
Right. No, that's awesome.
Cool.
So kind of, I want to transition a little bit into kind of your current situation. And I appreciate you being willing to talk about this because this is a hard time for a lot of people. And when I initially reached out to you, you were still with the company. And maybe it was a couple days later, you got back to me and said, actually Stance is going through some stuff right now. And, unfortunately furloughed some people at the company, including me. But I still want to be involved, which I really appreciate. Do you mind sharing a little bit of like why you wanted to come and share and still participate, even though, you're not maybe in the situation that you had hoped to be in?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this industry has some amazing people and I've gotten some of the most amazing opportunities, both work and life out of this, out of working in this industry. And so it was just, I saw it as a way to kind of like, I like definitely got to pay it forward, and it was definitely heartbreaking to see that place go away. And definitely see like, I don't know, you're riding the wave, so to speak. And all of a sudden the wave came crashing down and a lot of people lost their jobs and a lot of people are out of work now for either permanently or for, at least probably a few months. And that place may or may not, who knows, may not ever be what it was. I don't know. A lot of stuff's going to change there, especially in the next, 6 months to a year. And yeah, I mean, I was crushed when I got that phone call that was saying, hey, like it's over and, we're sorry and we're sorry it ended this way. But, after the kind of shock of that wore off, it's like, okay, like, it is what it is. And if I sit here and spin out about it, like that's not going to get me anywhere. So it's, you kind of pick up, dust off and keep on moving. And to me, it was more of like, you know what? Okay, this is good. I needed to pivot myself into the more outdoor snow space anyway, because that's where my heart really lies. Mm-hmm. So it was just maybe the timing might not feel right, but I think it was the right thing that needed to happen. And it is what it is. So.
Well, I appreciate you being willing to share it because I think a lot of people would just say, I don't have time to do that. Like I got to figure out my own world and what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I've had almost 10 years there. So a part of this is like, I need some time to just like decompress from that,
Right. Yeah.
It was a long time, but it went by in the blink of an eye for sure. And it was, top of the world emotions and top level stress that comes along with that. So
right.
I think this, like kind of taking a step back and like gathering myself a little bit and knowing like, hey, you need to like take a second, just chill for a minute. Like you've worked really hard for a really long time. Right. And it's time to kind of just like let that fall away for a bit.
Right. That's the advice that I've heard from a few people, kind of HR people, a few different people in the industry who have kind of just said, if you're facing this situation right now, your inclination can be just to work harder, right? And just go, and like just work, like try to figure something out. But I love what you said. You just gotta just just take a minute and sit still and just like maybe
Yeah.
take a time to reflect and breathe and kind of refocus yourself.
It
I
puts
know
your,
my perspective would be to just go,
yeah.
and maybe
And
that's
that's,
not the best thing.
no, and that's, I mean, definitely don't get me wrong. It took me, a little bit of thinking and kind of some process to get to that point of
Yeah.
being in that mindset for sure. Yeah. I mean, initially it was just like, you're in shock because this thing I helped, build for the last 9 years or whatever, just fell apart in front of me,
Yeah.
But it's just the people I met over that time has already opened up opportunities where I'm already have a couple little freelance things going as well. So it's like,
Right.
and it's like, I wasn't really even chasing anything down, so to speak. It was kind of just like, hey, are you interested in doing this? Or like, I just did a little couple graphics for a small brand up in Santa Monica. And I just did it for free because they're, kind of pivoting their apparel manufacturing, doing masks for the whole current situation. And then they just reached out and, hey, can you do X, Y, and Z for us? And what's your rate? And, and those kind of things, I think it's like, okay, cool. Like there's definitely people out there that they need some help, and then they're, they get it and they're willing to kind of pay it forward or pay it back to you later on down the line. So.
Right. No, I love that whole idea. And I think it's relevant for a student who's trying to break in or someone who's
Yeah.
trying to break into the industry. It's like, sometimes you got to be willing to just do a project for someone and not look at like what you're trying to get in return.
Yeah.
And especially when you're like trying to, work for a larger brand, sometimes it can come across, if you're reaching out to someone at the company and asking about internships, it can just seem like you're just trying to take.
Yeah. Gimme.
But if you're give, stuff seems to come back in a way, right? And especially at this time, like that giving part, if you're able to, like, things will come back.
Totally. It's like, and right, especially right now, everyone's in a weird position. Like no one's normal is normal anymore.
Totally. Yeah.
So you just it goes back to just being flexible and kind of, you got to just take it with stride, and you can't control all these things,
Right. Yeah. So, and my next question is kind of around like rebounding. Like, how do you, and you've alluded to some of this, like taking that time to go through shock, like those are real feelings. You got to feel them. Like you can't repress that. Like the stage, you got to go through stages, right? And feel all these things. But at some point, and I don't want to speak for you, but part of your rebounding from this, it seems like you had a built-in network who was willing to come to your aid and help you out. And that was years of building relationships with people. Maybe not necessarily like, thinking about this situation happening in the future, but, can you speak to just the power of like having a network and making sure that you have a good reputation in the industry and good relationships, because those people come back to take care of you later?
Yeah, and that was something too, like it was completely, I guess at first I just didn't expect it, and maybe that goes to show that like, if you're going through, the process of things and you're not expecting something in return from people, that usually that outcome is far better than if it's like, oh, well, I did this for you, so you got to do this for me,
Totally. Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy. Like as soon as I, kind of had put a couple things up, basically saying like, hey, this is, times are changing and I'm looking for something new. I had just people left and right reaching out. Hey, go through my list of contacts on LinkedIn, whoever you want me to connect you to, just send me the message and I'll link you immediately, and then phone calls. Hey, can you do some work for so-and-so? Or, like I was saying, that gig I did up in Santa Monica for that brand, they were a contact that I knew that I got linked up to from Hava, who I did the whole adventure program with at Stance. It was definitely, it's just one of those things. It's like, hey, I've been working with this brand, but I don't do graphic design, but you do. So how can I get you in,
Right.
But yeah, it was wild to see just the amount of people that like, they're there, but you're not, I was never relying on them for anything like this,
Right.
and I never was asking for it.
Yeah.
And so to have them just reach out and be willing to like, hey dude, whatever you need, you say the word, like my Rolodex is yours. And if I can link you to someone, all you got to do is say when, and you got it, you know?
Right. Oh
And
yeah,
that was
totally.
really cool to see, and definitely makes me kind of, I don't know, just it makes you proud of like past scenarios, and just like knowing that, you know what, if you don't burn any bridges, chances are those people are going to be there for you when you need them, you know?
Right. And the industry that we're in is especially tight. I think
Yes.
other industries are taking care of, their people. But I feel like the outdoor industry is, sports and outdoor industries are just that much
Yeah,
closer. And so, anyone looking to get into the space, you're going to get taken care of. There's good people out there, which
for
I,
sure.
I recommend to anybody, looking to get into this space. It's like, you're going to be around good people who have your interest in mind and want to see you succeed and work with
100%.
you. If you're a good person, right? Like if
Yep.
you're just a genuinely good person, like, you know, good things will come your way. But
Yeah, and it's like, it just goes back to, and this is kind of, I think anywhere in life it plays a role, but it's just, take care of the people that you're around and that you work with, and one day if you ever need them, they're going to be there for you, you know?
right, for sure.
And that's part of
Um,
what makes this industry so rad, is that, that is the kind of normal way of thinking for the most part within it.
right.
It's definitely it's a business, but it's definitely has a very high level of family, values, that drive it, and then that have driven it for since the beginning of it all.
Right. Totally. You, a lot of people are looking for work right now.
Mm-hmm.
The work just might not be there. Right.
Sure.
What do you recommend people do to make themselves marketable, or like use this time? Obviously it's a good time to just like refocus, but
Mm-hmm.
if you can't work, you're out of work, what are some of your recommendations as a creative person? Like, how do you stay marketable or work on a skill, or what do you recommend
Yeah.
doing with this time if you can't work?
Yeah. I mean, first thing is just like, don't get in your head about it. Don't, because then it's gonna start in a way at you like a cancer, and that will affect interactions you have, down the road, and it's not a good scenario for anyone. So obviously it's hard to like stay positive in a really relatively bad time, but you just got to kind of brush it off and know that it's not going to be forever. And so that's definitely one little piece. And then second is just keep creating stuff, keep doing things that inspire you. Like, I mean, I've probably worked just as much, if not more, like on the computer, doing either just graphic design stuff because it's fun for me,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm down in the garage sewing up little bags because I enjoy it, and I can sell them and make a few bucks on it too. Awesome, and it keeps my brain going, and like it's a different thing than being in front of the computer.
Right.
Um, I've written, obviously we're not, you can, everyone's got their own opinion on this, but being outside and just kind of taking that time to decompress,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's like, go ride your bike, go mountain bike, like I went and ski toured on, was it 2 days ago? It's amazing.
Yeah.
You've got some of the like deepest snow Southern California's seen in years right now. It's just been raining nonstop on the coast and just loading up the mountains. And it's like, you got to make smart decisions and make sure you're not going to be putting yourself in a bad situation. But if it means you can get out and kind of clear your head and just come back home with like a very positive outlook on things, then I think that's worth it for sure.
Right. For sure. And I think you alluded to this a little bit, like, go where your creativity is, right? And
Sure.
kind of let that flow. Like, I've seen that a little bit. I'm not a designer, but kind of working in a little bit of a creative field and creative
Mm-hmm.
endeavors, more on the marketing side. And I've seen myself have to pivot more towards creating content like this, like
Yeah.
podcasting, video work. Um, and that's just kind of where my creativity is, and it's flowed this direction, and I'm fully embracing it. Right. And it seems
Yeah.
like just being willing to adapt and flow with kind of how you're feeling and what you want to create, kind of how you mentioned, just feeling that urge to go and sew something up and create that way.
Yeah.
I think that creativity is going to be really important for people moving forward. But
Yeah. And it's cool. It puts you into it opens up your thought process and your eyes to kind of a different like you said, a different part of that creativity. And like I've done a couple logo projects and I haven't done logo stuff in, seems like forever. So
Right.
it's cool to go back and revisit some of these skills too, that like, oh man, I'm rusty at this. Like this is going to take me a little while,
Right. Totally.
but it's good. You hone your craft and it makes you that much better of a designer and just a thinker and everything. So,
Right. For sure. We talked about this a little bit, but staying competitive and preparing yourself for when we do get through this.
mm-hmm.
I think you alluded to some of that, just continuing to hone those skills, continuing to keep up, whatever it is, your sketching skills, your digital design,
mm-hmm.
Whatever it is your skill is, like find ways to keep that going. And maybe that is like, maybe if you don't have work, it's okay, well, I'm going to design some personal projects that I didn't have time to do.
Sure.
Or I'm going to, design something for a brand that once we get through this, I do want to work for. I'm going to build out a whole line for them.
Yeah.
And be ready to, present that to them when we get through all this, take that time to, invest in yourself.
Totally.
And move forward.
Totally. Yeah. It's definitely, I've been having worked so long at one place for a while now. It's like something that I just wasn't good at doing was keeping track of just like portfolio type stuff,
mm-hmm.
So that's another great thing to kind of pass this current time is get that all buttoned up and ready. Because when it is time to hit go and hit apply for that gig or that job that you've been, wanting to pop up, like be ready. Because you're going to be entering unfortunately a work environment that's going to be highly congested and highly competitive.
Right. Oh, for sure.
So, and there's no way around that. So it's, don't look at it as a bad scenario, but it is what it is.
Right. So as you're kind of starting this new chapter,
mm-hmm.
From my perspective, you're very positive. Like you're optimistic about it, everything, which, most people I feel like wouldn't be. It's just such an unprecedented situation. So I just think it's amazing kind of your approach to all this. But what are you looking forward to about this new stage of your career and kind of the direction you're going?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the biggest things are definitely just getting myself into a part of the industry that I'm definitely more connected to and focusing all, if not all, a large majority of my energy in that industry. Whereas before, it was fun and the design work was great and I got to touch a lot of different product, but it was, the lifestyle piece of it, maybe that's not what makes me tick that much, So being able to kind of get into that little scenario, and then more so just, this whole thing has opened me up, like with what we've been seeing with different companies and different leadership and how they're reacting to these scenarios, either positively or negatively, and, kind of all the in between. I want to be definitely a part of that positive change and like help kind of lead the next crew of, younger designers coming through. And show them that like, hey, this industry, like it's here to help you grow and lift you up, not just, give you a paycheck and make you work.
Right. Yeah.
It's much bigger than that. And so that's something that's super important to me. And I want to make sure that was given to me when I was younger. And so I want to make sure that keeps happening.
Well, you're definitely doing that. And, we are grateful that you'd be willing to spend the time and share your background, what you're going through, all of this with students. It's so valuable.
If there was a program like this back when I was in school, I guess I was just blind to it, but I don't think there was, and I would have killed to have it,
Right. Yeah.
That sort of scenario. So,
well, that's what we like to hear. But
very cool.
How do people stay in touch with you during this time? If they have other questions, can people reach out to you? How's the best way to stay in touch?
Yeah. I can give you my LinkedIn and we can do that. If you just look me up on there, it's just Christian Schrader.
Yeah. We'll leave it in the show notes too.
Sure. And then I can, I'll give you my email that I'm using for, not my personal, but like kind of any work related stuff.
Yeah.
And if anyone has questions or just wants to chat, like I'm got nothing but time on my hands right now. So feel free to hit me up. And then obviously the normal Instagram time sucks for all of us. There's lots of cool stuff like you and I were chatting about earlier popping up on there. So definitely hit me up on there, and I'd love to talk more. It's a weird time for sure, but it's going to pass, and I think it's going to definitely have a lasting effect on this industry, but it's going to make for, I think, a positive, next chapter of it.
Right. For sure. Well, especially at this time, connection's what we need. So
For sure.
Yeah. I think thanks for being willing to, answer any of those questions. We'll include all those links in the show notes. So again, thanks for taking the time, and it's good to talk to you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. This is what you guys are doing over there is awesome. So definitely stoked on that.
Hey, thanks again.